From WWL-TV, this is an Eye on the Black and Gold special.
Yeah, hi, and welcome to our 90-minute Eye on the Black and Gold special. I'm Doug Bouton, that's Brooke Kirchhoffer. Andy Dalton makes his debut this morning as the Saints starting quarterback. Jameis Winston is out. Saints and Vikings kick off at 8:30 this morning, New Orleans time. We're going to take you up to 8 a.m. and then send it to the NFL Network for their pregame show.
And we're live in Mid-City and in London. Meg Ferris is live at Finn McCool's, where they're getting ready for some early morning football. But let's start with Ricardo Lecomte live in London. Hey, Ricardo.
Yeah, good morning, Brooke, and good morning, Doug, and good afternoon here from North London. We're at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where today's game between the Saints and Vikings will go down. Saints looking to snap a two-game losing streak against a really good 2-1 Minnesota team. Tottenham Hotspur, the site for this game. The Saints have played here twice in London, but this is the first time they'll be playing in this stadium. It's actually a pretty nice stadium, one of the state-of-the-art venues here in London. It's actually an artificial turf, and they actually built this in 2019. That was actually the first game in the NFL. The NFL game was held here, was in 2019. It is a sold-out crowd tonight, and if you look outside of the stadium right now with all the fans coming in, you will see all 32 NFL teams represented by those fans. American football certainly has grown in Europe in the past 15 years since the first game that was played here in 2007. It is a sold-out crowd. It is a very excited crowd. It is also a very pro-Who Dat crowd. We saw a ton of Saints fans out just a little while ago. We were just kind of getting a little bit of the atmosphere outside of the stadium. They are very excited about this game today inside Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which will actually sound a little bit like the Caesars Superdome. That's because Mark Roming, the normal Saints press public address announcer inside the Superdome, will actually be doing the PA announcing today in the stadium. And we caught up with Mark just a little while ago, and he says he is scratching one item off his bucket list to be able to call a game right here.
There's so much enthusiasm. It feels like the Super Bowl in many ways. So I'm excited. We have a good team here. We've got a hometown feel. We're going to be able to announce it like we're at the Superdome, which is exciting, and we're going to give it all we can. Hopefully we'll be celebrating at the end of the day, one way or the other.
I think all Saints fans are sharing that sentiment. They hope they are celebrating after a victory against Minnesota today. And yes, when I mentioned that you're seeing fans, European fans here, and all those different teams represented, yeah, we see Eagles, we see Panthers, I see a Cheesehead over there. There's a Denver Broncos uniform on as well. Yeah, all these jerseys, all these fans and these teams are really getting immersed in this NFL experience, and they should be in here in store for a great show this afternoon here in North London. We'll send it back to you, Doug and Brooke.
All right, Ricardo, we will see you again in a few minutes. You know, I talked to Sharice Gibson this morning. She is at the game, went as a fan, and she said, what are people doing with Carolina Panthers jerseys?
NFL fans everywhere.
That's the thing in London. They all wear whatever jersey they have, and they show up at the game. It's fun stuff. All right, Ricardo's got a ton of content lined up over the next 85 minutes or so, and Brooke and I have a lot from here in New Orleans, including a couple of exclusive interviews.
Yeah, Saints captain Demario Davis sits down with me ahead of their trip to London. We dive into the evolution of the defense under Dennis Allen and how Davis has played a major role in creating the identity of this group. Here's a sneak peek.
We done studied this opponent all week. We done studied, we know the opponent.
I mean, when you're in that moment, you're not thinking about a life after Drew. So it was an honor for me to step in, but I always knew that I could step into that, but I didn't ever think about actually doing it.
Yeah, and we caught up with Sean Payton through the magic of Zoom. Payton delivered to New Orleans the greatest 16-year run of winning football in Saints history. He's now enjoying life, doing some TV commentary. I asked him if the time away has reinforced his desire to coach again in the NFL.
I think if the right situation were to arise, that I would have an interest in that, yes. I feel like I'm still young. I'm in great shape. This time away has been fantastic. And look, Doug, that might be 2 or 3 years from now. It doesn't necessarily mean it's next season.
Yeah, Peyton was relaxed, clearly in a good mood, clearly enjoying life. It's a fun interview. That's coming up later. Again, Brooke will have her sit down with DeMario, and we got a bunch of live interviews. Ross Jackson standing by with our Locked On Saints podcast. He'll join Brooke and I from the press box in London. That's just a few minutes away. Longtime Saints reporter Mike Triplett of New Orleans Football will join Ricardo live in the studio. One of my favorite sports reporters in the country, Tatum Everett, who just happens to be from Mandeville. She'll join Ricardo. She works for the Minnesota Vikings, so that's a different perspective. And Saints analyst Nick Underhill is our cleanup hitter in the final half hour of this pregame show. He is live in London with Ricardo, too.
And next, New Orleans is waking up to Saints football on this beautiful Sunday morning. Meg Ferris is live in Mid-City at Finn McCool's, where they are no strangers to early morning football watch parties. We are just getting started on our Eye on the Black and Gold London pregame special.
The Saints' last trip to London before this one was one of the landmark games in the Sean Payton era. Remember, the Saints had losing records in 14, 15, and 16, and they were 1-2 when they played the Miami Dolphins in Wembley Stadium in 2017. And that London win lit the fire for a 5-year run. Dennis Allen's defense dominated on this October Sunday. They held the Miami Dolphins to less than 200 yards of total offense. The Saints were +1 in turnovers and found enough offense. Mike Thomas caught 8 passes for 89 yards and a score.
It gives us definitely momentum, time to keep that momentum and keep striving. Keep playing this and adding more. We have so much talent, and now we're starting to realize the guys are making plays all over, so just build off this and keep stacking it one day.
And rookie running back Alvin Kamara played his largest role to that point with 10 catches, including his first NFL touchdown reception.
It felt great, because it's one of those special plays. I mean, we practice it during the week, and it's like, all right, we're practicing it, but in the back of your head, you're like, all right, we're going to run this. And, Coach Payton dialed it up, and we were able to get it off, and, it felt great.
The win launched the Saints on an 8-game winning streak, and the situation then is similar to right now. At this point, nobody believed in that 2017 team yet.
We felt like we were closer than maybe everyone was trying to make us believe, and I think we felt like we just keep plugging away, and it's going to begin to happen. The formula is there. We just got to keep trusting that formula.
And that's exactly what the Saints are saying right now. Yeah, and that London win kicked off this. Over the last 5 regular seasons, the Saints have the second best record in the NFL. Only the Kansas City Chiefs have been better. The Rams and the Packers are 3-4. It has been a great run since the last London trip. Brooke?
The Saints obviously hoping to kick off another run of success in England today. Let's head back to London, where Ricardo Lecomte is live with one of the best to cover the Saints. New Orleans Football's Mike Triplett. Hey, Ricardo.
Hey, Brooke, no, I do agree. He is one of the best voices here covering the Saints for a while now. Mike Triplett joins us, and this is actually Mike's second trip to London covering the Saints. How's this trip been for you?
Well, I'm looking around. This is what I remember from last time, too. Ravens, Raiders, Seahawks, Steelers, Giants, 49ers, Dolphins. I mean, I get to 32 before we get off this segment or whatever. But it's cool. I mean, this stadium's way nicer than the last one, though. State of the art. Not only does it look great as they're getting a panorama around you guys, but I think the team really appreciates this is an NFL field that they bring up for these games and replace the soccer pitch with, and the locker rooms are state of the art and everything. And obviously the Saints, their third trip here, are really comfortable with how they do it and think it gives them an advantage.
Yeah, it's so much easier going into an arena that actually is fit for football versus trying to adapt to a soccer stadium that is also spread out around London. This is certainly a better setup for them. Let's talk a little bit about the Saints, and we've been through practice all week, and we watched Andy Dalton running with the first team. What's your confidence in Andy Dalton taking over for an injured Jameis Winston, and could he be the shot in the arm the Saints need on offense?
Well, it's possible. I think it's probably maybe the smallest drop-off between starter and backup in the league. The Saints think he's the best backup in the league, probably similar to when Teddy Bridgewater took over for Drew Brees with even more experience than him. So you feel real good about that. You feel good good about the fact that he practiced with the team all week long and isn't being thrown in at the last minute. But I also don't want people to all of a sudden think, oh, like 2018, Drew Brees is coming back. You know, Andy Dalton's not perfect. And this offense has a lot of problems. I don't know that any quarterback, even a healthy Jameis Winston or, you know, any of these guys when they were in their peak form, could solve everything that's going wrong with this offense, from the running backs fumbling every week to all the penalties that hurt them last week to some of the offensive line communication issues. So if the offense does finally play their first good game of the season, Andy Dalton will probably get too much.
No doubt. That's how it always works out if the quarterback ends up being successful filling in for the starter. One weapon Andy Dalton won't have is Mike Thomas. That's got to be a significant loss for this offense. Where do they get that production from?
Well, and Alvin Kamara's health is a little bit of a question mark. If he plays, he'll be limited, I think, today, too. Jarvis Landry was limited in practice all week. So, unfortunately, this offense is not at full strength. But they've got all their starting offensive linemen outside of Andrew Speed. They've got running back depth. They've got Jarvis Landry. They've got Chris Olave, who's turned into a go-to guy. And I don't think it's just on the deep balls. I think that can be on intermediate throws, too. So, even banged up, this team has a lot more weapons than it did last year.
How concerned are you about this rush defense for the Saints? Because it is uncharacteristic for this defense to give up 100-yard rushers like they have at this clip in the first 3 games, 2 100-yard rushers. How concerned are you about this defense? And do you think it is a easable fix for them to figure it out?
I do think it is pretty easy to fix. That's low on my list of concerns because I think in week 1, they just did such a bad job planning for – they didn't know what that Falcons offense was going to look like. They were pretty conservative. I think the next time they play the Falcons, they'll have a better plan for that. And I think last week they had a terrific plan for Carolina's offense overall. Carolina's offense stunk last week. If the Saints hadn't missed those 2 tackles on the long 67-yard touchdown pass from Baker Mayfield to Laviska Shenault, I think the Panthers would have had like 200 yards of total offense, 120 of them coming from Christian McCaffrey running the ball, but it didn't feel like it hurt them that bad. Their plan was make Baker Mayfield beat us, and he couldn't.
Real quick, 15 seconds. Who do you like today and why?
Well, I think I was saying this to people that this is like the least predictable Saints team ever, you know, and if Alvin Kamara doesn't play, which it looks like, and Michael Thomas doesn't play, it's just hard to have a lot of faith in them. But if they won 35-0 because they finally got their act together, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, I know. It's been very mercurial for this team to start this season. This is Mike Triplett from New Orleans Out Football. Thank you very much. Great insight this week, and enjoy the game.
Thank you.
And we'll send it back to you guys there in the studio.
Least predictable, a great way to put it. Thanks, Ricardo, and our thanks to Mike Triplett. A little later, Ricardo will go behind enemy lines with Tatum Everett, the on-air talent and content manager with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And coming up a little later, Brooke will catch up with the Cajun Cannon, Bobby Hebert, to talk about the change at quarterback that's ahead on our Eye on the Black and Gold pregame special. A ton of Who-Dats are at the game this morning. Ricardo joins us live again in London with a taste of the off-the-field fun. Ricardo.
Doug, yes, it's been crazy here this week. It does actually feel a little bit like New Orleans, especially as we've gotten later on into this week, and we've seen all those Who-Dats from New Orleans making this trip to London, and really, they are taking this whole week, and so the whole experience. So not just here for the game Sunday, they wanted to take all of London in, and at the same time take over the city, and certainly they did that. We saw so many fans, not only when we were walking around sightseeing, but also they were hitting up the bars and pubs, and that is no surprise. And from New Orleans, you've got to find a great establishment to have an adult beverage, and they certainly found it and took those places over. Now, the Who-Dat Nation extends actually beyond the United States borders. There's a lot of international Saints fans, and yesterday, while we were taking our first look at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we ran into some fans from Slovakia. And one of the guys has been a fan of the Saints since he was 12 years old. He said his favorite players were Demario Davis and a throwback, Jonathan Vilma. He says he just loves defense. So those guys were decked out in their Saints uniforms. They were loving that black and gold and representing here. We see a lot of European Saints fans also in the stand. I also wanted to see the Who-Dats earlier this week. So there was one establishment I checked out in particular to see if I could find some Saints fans. the Barrel Boy and Banker. 5 years ago, this was the home turf for Who Dat fans. So I thought, let's go check this bar out, talk to a couple of Saints fans and see what their predictions and their thoughts of Sunday's game is going to turn. Oh, wait a minute. Did this place turn into a Vikings bar? The Saints chant is actually Who Dat. So you're going to hear Who Dat a lot. Do you know Who Dat?
Oh, yeah. Who asked?
Have you seen any Saints fans yet?
No, I mean, it's Vikings country over here.
Did you know Justin Jefferson is actually from New Orleans?
I did not, but all I know is he's a beast. He's going to come through from Minnesota because it's the better state than New Orleans. So in Justin Jefferson, we trust.
New Orleans is not a state. New Orleans is not a state.
Louisiana.
The game's on October 1st. It's the start of Kirktober. It's a lock. Kirktober, he's not losing.
I'm going to go with the unpopular opinion. The Saints are going to win.
Wow!
If the Saints win, I look like a genius. If the Vikings win, I'm happy. I'm happy.
You're playing both sides. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think we found our Saints bar here at Horse and Guardsman in downtown London. Bunch of Who Dats here. So yes, there is a place for you when you arrive in London, Who Dats. Yeah, that was the place for all Saints fans, and I know every single day, starting I think about Wednesday, they were in droves inside Horse and Guardsman to represent not only the Saints, but also represent the city of New Orleans. It's been a great week of seeing all these fans enjoying themselves, enjoying the sights of London. There's a lot of history in this city, and certainly they got a great taste of that. And yes, today, that is, again, there are 32 NFL teams represented here, but there is a little bit more black and gold sprinkled around here because they certainly are represented here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Doug.
Now, the Saints will get a new quarterback this morning, and most of the team's issues early in the season have been on offense, but not all of them. Special teams have not helped at all. Will Lutz is struggling. The 2 misses in Carolina hurt badly. In fact, right now, he's 3 for 6 on field goals on the season. That's 50%, and that is not good for an NFL kicker. And here's the thing. In Lutz's career, he's over 85% on field goals, which is 16th best in the history of the NFL. But so far this year, he is last in the NFL in field goal percentage. That has to change. And I've heard some chirping about the lack of sacks from the Saints defense. Here's the only defensive stat that matters. In the 2 losses after 3 quarters, Carolina had just 6 offensive points. Tampa Bay only had 3. You have to win when your defense is holding teams down like that, and they're doing it without any offensive help. The Saints right now are last in turnover margin in the NFL at -6. Their 9 offensive turnovers are the most in the league. This is by far the Saints' biggest problem 3 games in, but it's not the only one. The play calling has been unimaginative, which may or may not be related to a quarterback who was playing hurt. Jameis Winston's back injury changed how he played in weeks 2 and 3. Last year, in the first 3 games of the season, when Winston felt good, he ran for first downs 6 times. This year, that is 0, and I think he hasn't been running because of his back. The hope is when he does come back after this rest, he'll be good enough to do some of this again. But the problems have been deeper than just the quarterback. 3 of the Saints' first 6 first-half drives against the Panthers were killed by penalties. The Saints are top 5 in the number of penalties and in penalty yards so far this season. It has all added up to bad offensive football, but there's also a lot of new parts that have to learn each other, and there's talent. So there is certainly hope that they can start figuring it out beginning this morning. Brooke? In the Saints' first 55 years of football, the Black and Gold have 10 playoff wins. Sean Payton was the Saints head coach for 9 of them. He ushered in the greatest era of football, and Who Dats will forever be grateful. We caught up with Payton through the magic of Zoom to talk about his new job and what's next. Look, Sean, first thing, the TV, how are you enjoying it so far?
Absolutely, and we talked about it before the game.
Your competitive nature is to really pick things up quickly and do a good job. I think it helps that it's with Fox because I've been in the NFC my whole career. I mean, 16 years with the Saints and then Cowboys prior, Giants, Eagles, and a lot of the people there, you get to know over the years. It doesn't feel like work when it's Sunday and you're actually, in the studio talking about games, different topics. But it's been fun. It's been exciting.
Has being away for even this short period of time, has it sort of reinforced that, yes, you want to do this again? And I'm not putting a timetable on it, but do you feel like you want to coach again at some point for sure?
I think if the right situation were to arise, that I would have an interest in that. Yes. I feel like I'm still young. I'm in great shape. This time away has been fantastic. And look, Doug, that might be 2 or 3 years from now. It doesn't necessarily mean it's next season.
And I'm guessing the experience in New Orleans with the Bensons and with Mickey has sort of taught you whatever opportunity comes next, you know what to look for and you know what to avoid, right?
100%. And I think the hardest part is for 16 years, a guy like Mickey, who's my best friend, and Mrs. Benson, Dennis Lauscha, and Greg Benzel, and the coaching staff, and all the people back there, they're your family, and you get used to seeing them daily even more than you see your own family, and then that part I miss a lot, and it's hard to make up for that. And so there are a number of teams that are having trouble through the center of the lineup, if you will, ownership, front office, general manager. And if that's not clean, and if that's not on point, then it's too hard as it is.
Demario Davis and Pete Werner have been playing out of their minds to start the season. Talk about those two, how special they are, the things they can do. And I'm guessing, from what I know about Demario, he's got to be a pleasure to be his head coach, right?
Oh, that's fantastic. You starting with Demario, he was one of the great signs by us in free agency. And not only, because sometimes in free agency you're not quite sure, but everything and more is what we got from him. We got a great football player. We got a great leader. We got a fantastic person, a great teammate, someone who communicates well, and someone who's passionate. And we've really, right in front of our eyes, gotten to see his career take off in the NFL. And then with Pete, we knew we were getting someone who had really good football IQ and instincts. When you watched him on film, he was always around the ball. So it's great to see him healthy. Those two players, though, are guys that you have to account for and get hats on, and if not, they'll make a lot of tackles.
How much do you find yourself pulling for Dennis Allen? How much do you want for Dennis Allen to have success in the NFL as a head coach?
Tremendously. I still say we or our, because there's so many coaches that have been there. Dennis for a long period of time, Pete Carmichael, Doug Marrone, just on and on. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that are invested in the program. And so even when you leave, I'm yelling at the TV and pulling for them. But I want them to realize all their dreams and success. And I think they have a team this year. I see them winning this division. And obviously it's early in the year, but very much so.
Yeah, and our thanks to Sean Payton for giving us a few minutes. Brooke, when we were done with that interview the other day, our director, Larry Everidge, said to me, I don't think I've ever seen Sean Payton that relaxed.
Oh, so true.
He really was. He was in a talkative mood. He was in a good mood. I'm glad he's enjoying his time away from coaching.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. Payton also talked glowingly about Saints linebacker Demario Davis. I had a chance to sit down with him one-on-one. That and our final thoughts on the Saints and Vikings coming up on our Eye on the Black and Gold London pregame special. When Demario Davis first came to the Saints in 2018, he was named a team captain right away. But that wasn't always the case for the linebacker from Brandon, Mississippi, who has now grown into a leadership role over the years. I sat down with Davis ahead of the London trip to find out how those leadership qualities have helped shape the Saints' defensive mentality. I want to take you back to Seattle, 2019, your first pregame huddle speech with the Saints. In that moment, could you see that this could be your role with the Saints?
No.
We done studied this opponent all week. We done studied, we know the opponent.
I mean, when you're in that moment, you're not thinking about a life after Drew. So it was an honor for me to step in, but I always knew that I could step into that, but I didn't ever think about actually doing it. And so I put a lot of thought and energy into that one, and it went well. And I guess so well that when he came back, he asked me to share that moment with him. And so I think it was a natural transition.
When were you first named a team captain? Was it the NFL, college, or even at Brandon High School?
I don't think I was selected a captain even in my senior year in high school. I mean, I was a little rough around the edges, so that might have been a smart choice by my coaches. But I was selected a captain in college. But I mean, the first time actually wearing the C was actually here in New Orleans, because selected as a captain in Cleveland and selected as a captain in New York, but we didn't actually have the C.
When you got here in 2018, Dennis Allen in his role with the defense, could you tell that maybe he was creating something special?
I don't know if I noticed it right away how good our defense could be. But I think me coming and some other guys starting to elevate their play, it started to be like, man, wait, we got a really good group.
Back in 2019 when Breeze went out, I remember being in the locker room and every guy that was on defense that I talked to, it was that shift of, we want to win this game for our team. Like, we want to put the team on our back. Is that when the shift happened?
I believe that's really when the shift happened, because when I came, that was the only mentality I ever knew, was defense wins game. So coming here was a little bit different. I remember, talking with DA when I first got here, like, look, I believe in putting it on the defense. I think everyone had that mentality, but it had never been needed. But when Drew went down, it was, I believe, the time where everybody realized, okay, well, now it's on us and it has to be on us. And it can be. And even when Drew came back, that mentality just kind of stuck around. When Drew retired, we had already won 11 games without him. And I think it was natural for us to be ready for that transition.
Then to introduce the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Dennis Allen.
DA becomes the head coach. This defensive mentality that grew back in 2019 now is carried over to special teams and the offense. How have you seen those players respond to this defensive mentality that's now, this is a team identity?
It's happening. It's happening for sure. And I think DA has done a tremendous job of presenting himself in a way that guys believe in him. And guys are buying in. The type of success that has happened with him leading the defense, it's only naturally going to happen for the whole team with that buy-in of everybody.
You talk about believing. Back in training camp, going to look at your quote. You said the book is still being written on this defense. We're chasing greatness to be the best, one of the best defenses ever. Why not go be number one? Do you feel like this defense can still do that and be written in history books?
Yeah, of course. I feel greater than ever about it, because we had our first game where we kind of got away from doing what we were coached to do, but then we got right back at it, and you going against one of the better offenses in the league, and you hold them to limited yardage. And so we know when we do what we're coached to do, it's gonna work.
Yeah, and thanks to DeMario for taking the time to sit down with me. He put it best: when it all comes together and they're trusting these coaches, I think we can see this team still succeed. It's only week 4.
And look, they are not giving up many points, and that's the best thing about this defense. All right, time for some final thoughts. Let's bring in Ricardo LeCompte at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. All right, look, Ricardo, give me one key, one thing that has to happen for the Saints to win this morning.
I think it is all on Andy Dalton. I think this offense has to be the one that kind of takes the charge, and Andy's got to play well. We know that the struggles of this offense starting, it's been the turnovers, it's been the penalties, and they haven't really gotten a rhythm. Maybe Andy Dalton can get this offense kind of spurred and kind of get it going with the play with just his play. Now, he won't have Alvin Kamara, he won't have Michael Thomas, but he's still got some weapons. He's still got some guys that can contribute. Look at that run game. You've got Mark Ingram, and also Latavius Murray, who is familiar with the system in that running back room. He's got to be able to find those guys, rely on those guys in the running back room, and also use Chris Olave. I think he's going to also play a key to help Andy Dalton succeed in this game.
We got just a few seconds. Who wins? Brooke, one word. Saints or Vikings?
Saints.
Saints. Ricardo?
I'm going to go with the Saints.
I'm going with the Saints, too. Look, guys, great stuff. Saints and Vikings kick off here on Channel 4 at 8:30. We're going to turn it over now to the NFL Network pregame show. Don't forget, Brooke, Ricardo, and I will all be here to break it down in like 15 hours on 4th Down on 4. For all of us here at Eyewitness Sports, thanks for watching.